What's good, everybody? This is, of course, Stephen Qualls II, and we're back with another qualified interview. Today, I'm doing my first one in person because we are both in Columbia and, doing our safety precautions because this is technically not social distancing, but, we're fine. We're good. But I'm sitting here with another mentor of mine, somebody I've definitely looked up to, especially in the sports realm, what I even want to get into, and I'll let him introduce himself and say a little bit before I start asking my questions. So.
Oh yeah, appreciate that. Martin Solomon, so I'm Director of Football Academics here at the University of Missouri. Again, this is one of my guys for the last couple of years since moving back to Columbia, so you already know how that goes.
Gang gang. But yeah, no, so I just started off, this is my first question for everybody within this series. When did you fall in love with sports? Did you fall in love with playing a sport? Did you fall in love with watching the sports? Like, where did that love begin?
Honestly, man, it was before we even knew we were even competing, like around the neighborhood. So I started running track when I was 8. I started playing football when I was 8 years old.
Okay.
And that happened from us just being around the neighborhood, like a bunch of the guys being around the neighborhood. We would race, basically with no shoes on, racing down,
Right.
basically going that way. And then we basically each street had their own football team. And
Oh,
we would
wow.
all like just play against each other until like basically the track coach came around the neighborhood like, all y'all follow me. So we literally followed him up to the track, and then we became on the team. Literally, that's how I won. And then football season came back around, and everybody from the track team literally came and they walked us right down to the football field. So from the beginning, it went from a love of us just competing against each other on some just we outside type stuff.
Right.
And then it went from that to actually getting on the team, and then from there, shooting all the way up to college for real.
Of course. And so, where did you grow up? Because I don't know how many people know you for sure.
So I grew up in Chester, Pennsylvania. So it's a city right outside of Philadelphia. I would say small town, by probably less than 100,000 people for real. One high school, a couple schools in town like that. So it's considered suburban Philadelphia, but it's really not. But East Coast do through and through for real.
Okay, for sure. And so, as you go through school and get to high school and you start looking at college, have you figured out what you wanted to do? I'm of course assuming it dealt with sports, but did you want to play? Did you know you wanted to get into something else?
Yeah, so I ran track and played football throughout my life. But when I got to high school, I realized quickly the football letters wasn't coming as fast as the track letters was coming. So quickly then, that's where my focus switched. So I stopped playing football in 10th grade. And then from there, just focused on track. So I would do AAU in the summer, USATF in the summer, and then high school track throughout the year. And then that quickly hit as I got close to being a senior, whereas I got realistically I had 2 solid offers going into it, mainly because of academic things that I wasn't doing on my end. Didn't have the scores at the time. Didn't get the scores until the semester before graduating. So literally as fast as I was excited to think about what's next, I wanted to be pro, I wanted to go to the Olympics, all those dreams that any track athlete will have. And then really quickly realized I wasn't doing the part on my end to even allow those opportunities to come. So originally I signed with Youngstown State out of high school. When I finally got my scores, I called coach. I was like, hey, coach, I got my scores. He's like, all right, all you need to do is run this time. Literally next week at the next meet, I ran the time. I said, hey, coach, I got my time. And so it was boom, boom, got the offer, and then signed there originally before moving and transferring. I know I'm jumping the story, but before finishing at ULM. So I did finish at University of Louisiana Monroe.
Okay. But yeah, so did you run track there essentially?
Yeah, yep. So I ran track in college. So I ran track at Youngstown State for 2 years.
Okay.
And then after my sophomore year, I transferred to ULM and then finished there. Say junior, senior year, I finished there my last 2 seasons running. But I know I talked about my ultimate goal was to be an Olympian. Once I got to college, I realized quickly. the I'm not gonna say how hard it would be, but you had to be an elite talent to really think about that at that level. So for me, it became the goal switched. So high school, Martin was just excited to get the opportunity to be an Olympian, go do big things, and then when I actually got the opportunity, it was more so, man, I need to take advantage of this as much as possible, which is obviously leaving with a degree, trying to figure out life after sport and thinking about really the opportunities that I wanted from there. So then it's quickly switched to, I got to just make the most of this opportunity. So Youngstown State, I'm up in Ohio freezing my butt off for 2 years. It was a really good experience. And then the reason why I transferred, I was like, I got 2 years left to really maximize this. I'm not really trying to go pro. I just want to see what I can do in the next 2 years of competing. And I PR'd and did all the things that I wanted to do and transferring. And, the Louisiana heat is hot, but it allowed for you to train, outdoors almost all year round, which was a difference between training up north and on the East Coast. For sure, you have to go indoors. You're running in the hallways in schools if you ain't got an indoor facility. So it allowed for some other things to just maximize that while also then trying to figure out what I wanted to do after sport, which was probably the hardest thing of all those things.
Of course, so yeah, so like you get to college, you run in college for 4 years, and it happens with a lot of people, not just athletes.
Yep.
You go through college, you have this degree plan, and then you get your degree, but you either don't want to go into that field or you're still just lost on what exactly you want to do. So what was your process as you were finishing your collegiate career and trying to figure out, okay, like what's the next move?
Oh, yeah.
Like, did you know you wanted to go back to school, or was that like a fallback plan? Did it just kind of fall in your lap?
Yeah,
How did that work?
It kind of just fell in my lap. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do career-wise until my senior year, probably around January, February, which is crazy to say. But I knew, so when I transferred from Youngstown State to ULM, I had switched my degree. I was education while I was at Youngstown State, and once I transferred, I lost a lot of credits. I finished general studies with focus on sociology, psychology.
Okay.
So at this point, going into my the spring of my senior year, I go into my academic advisor office, and I'm just like, man, I really need to figure out what I want to do. Like, I want to stay involved in sports. I want to coach. I want to do this. Maybe I want to go in ticket sales. I was like, man, maybe I want to go in marketing. I was like, I just want to be involved in sports somehow.
Right.
So he gave me this website. It was NCAA Job Market website that definitely used up until getting all of the jobs that I got today, applying and just keeping up on some of those. So he gave me the website. He was like, they'll post graduate assistantships on here. They'll post opportunities for internships and different things for you to just get some experience in different areas of sports. So going on there, one of the most common ones on there was academic services. I, at the time, didn't even know what that was, even though that was my academic advisor. But what does that look like as a job is really what my confusion was on it. I knew what ticket sales was, obviously. I knew what marketing was, obviously. I knew what the donor and gifts and relations was, but I just really didn't have an idea of what that was. So he gave me the website, I started reading up on opportunities, and then I just started applying. So in order to apply to GA-ships, you usually had to get a resume, you had a cover letter, maybe some reference letters and things like that. So I applied to at least 50 GA-ships from January when I met my advisor to me signing my letter of eventually taking an opportunity to complete my master's here at Mizzou, or at the University of Missouri. Applied to at least 50, got at least 20 no's, got at least 15 interviews, and it was up and down, up and down, up and down. But at that point, I was full steam ahead on trying to figure out life after sports. So
Right.
I waited 3.5 years, and then at that 3.5 mark, I'm like, oh snap! So I'm applying, trying to figure out what the next opportunity is. And the main thing I was going for graduate assistantships is because I couldn't afford school,
Right.
obviously. So my scholarship for track was my way of paying for school. So then now I'm thinking about, all right, I have a general studies degree. I know what I want to do in life, and I know I need to get a master's degree just to kind of expand on what I already have now and to open up different opportunities, because when you go into academic services, most times they need you to have a master's. So I needed to have that master's. So for me, it was really just trying to maximize the opportunity of finishing the master's, leaving with the degree. And then what was the question? Because I just totally mind blocked.
No, just more so about like what that process looked like. But I mean that. So no, that all speaks to it. And so you do your graduate assistantship here, at the University of Missouri. And what all did that teach you? And did that in any way confirm like this is definitely the direction I want to continue in terms of what I want to do involved?
Oh yeah. So from the time, that's what I was talking about, applying to a bunch of graduate assistantship. So got a bunch of no's. I ended up getting into OU as well, Oklahoma University, and then Mizzou. And then Mizzou offered me a week before almost accepting, or 2 days before almost accepting Oklahoma. And then once Mizzou offered me first, I was like, man, loyalty. That was the first interview I got. That was the first people who seemed like they wanted me there. The first offer I got, the official offer I got to rock with it. So then Oklahoma came literally after that, and I was like, man, I got to go with what's guaranteed always. Right. And that one was already in. So that's how this opportunity came. And the plan was always go see if it's something that you really like, figure out if it's something that you really want to do. And even while I was a GA at Mizzou within my first year, I shadowed ticket sales. I shadowed donor relations and gifts, and I realized quickly that I don't want nothing to do with any of those areas just because you don't get the same student interaction. You don't get to talk to the students. You get to talk to the students, but you don't get that interaction that you get, in academic services. So for me, it was just trying to see if I wanted to do the job, see if I could handle it, see if it was something that I could see myself doing. For me, it was learning exactly what the job was and how I can really, find my place in the industry. So I was only here at the University of Missouri from August of 2014 to October of 2015. Usually you have a 2-year GA-ship, but I just loaded up on credits, wanted to finish as fast as possible just so I could start in the workforce, mainly monetary motivations of just starting life and getting started that way. But also just having some mentors who I met within that first year who would just, let me know how to basically maximize opportunity. It was like,
Right.
man, yeah, see, whenever you get to that point where you're like, man, I think I might learn everything I needed to learn here. And then I think it might be time where it was that marker after the second summer, I was just like, man, I think I might be ready to at least see if there's opportunities and then kind of apply for those opportunities. And then from there, I ended up somewhere in North Dakota.
Right. Okay. So yeah, you leave. So you're back here now, but you did leave after your graduate citizenship. So what was that whole process like, and then what eventually led you back?
Yeah.
to
So
Columbia?
right after I got finished with my graduate citizenship, the first job I got was at the University of North Dakota. It was not the first. My preference of first job. So I interviewed at Central Florida. I interviewed at Temple. I interviewed at some really other good places as well. But again, like I said, I always go was guaranteed. And when that opportunity came to North Dakota, I didn't have any other offers. So I took a visit there for an interview. I visited. I was like, man, this is a place I can see myself living. This was before winter hit. So this is why I was so into wanting to just go. But I knew I needed to get my feet in the door. So one of the things about athletics is, like, if you don't know people that can just go, hey, come on in, then it's going to be really a grind to get in. So sometimes you got to get in where you fit in. So for me, that was me getting in where I fit in. North Dakota, I knew that I didn't have to live there forever. You know what I'm saying? So for me, my mindset was get the experience, and then you can go. So get the experience you need, and then you can go and figure out what's open next year. You can figure out what's open, maybe next semester or whatever the case is. So I ended up being there for 6-7 months until Michael Harris, who was at the University of Maryland, gave me a call and was like, hey, man, we got an opportunity coming open. I know you're at North Dakota, but I just wanted to reach out. I was like, say less, I'm there. So that was 2 hours away from Chester, so 2 hours away from my home. So I went to Maryland in June of 2016, so right after I left North Dakota, and I was there for a year. And then literally my boss, who's at the University of Missouri now, called me and was like, hey, we got an opportunity, we would love to get you back and stuff like that. So I was talking and I'm like, man, the cost of living in the DMV is this. The cost of living in Maryland or Missouri is this. Man, I love DMV, I love DC, I love Maryland. But the cost of living was insane. So when she called, I was like, I'm there. So I could start saving, I could start trying to build for the future and start really living. And this is a better living situation and things like that in terms of, we had an apartment which was nice in the city, but you were paying $1,800-$1,900 versus what you can pay here in Columbia. So it just kind of worked out that way, that the journey brought me, kind of back here full circle with everything. And I've been back here in September. It'll be 3 years since I've been back at the University of Missouri. So going into my 4th season here. Which is insane to think about now.
Yeah, honestly, so and you got the director of football academics job. What, last year officially?
So last July. So it's been over a year now, or almost. Yeah. So last July. So dang, it's been a year now. Yeah. Since been at the helm in that position as well.
But speak to that experience and just, you're in a position where you're focusing on the aspect and the
a lot of people may not even know what that even is.
A lot of people don't know what that is, and a lot of people, I don't even think, realize how important that role is, to have somebody that's in charge of making sure your players are being taken care of and are taking care of their business in the classroom. We know it's been a decades-long conversation of athletes being student athletes actually, but the student part not being focused on. So just speak to your mentality and your approach to making sure they understand that the classroom and their education is just as important, if not more important actually, than whatever their athletic gifts are.
Yeah, so for me it's always like the examples we see every April or May when the draft comes. Yeah. So we see the examples every April or May of how important the degree is. And for me, it was like, all right, you get to college, you may even have the same experience where when I got to college, it's this big old campus. Yeah. I get to college and you by yourself. First generation college student I was as well. And so it was literally, everything was shot. The only thing I can remember is that was some of the best information I got was my academic advisor said, my athletic academic advisor said, whatever you need, I'll be here as much as I can. Just make sure you communicate. Make sure you communicate. If you need tutors, we'll set it up. If you need this, we'll set it up. The help is there. That never was a priority to me ever for the 18 years before I got to college. Right. So for me, it's prioritizing that. So in that initial summer, so right now we got a bunch of freshmen in right now. So the class of 2020 is here. And now we're hammering all those things in now to get them. Now you got 8 guys who've been getting recruited for the last 5 years or 4 or 5 years or so. And now you're trying to tell them that, hey, the real focus is academics. The real money is academics. If you don't take care of academics, really, you're losing a lot of money that way as well. So when the scouts come, they're asking us, how's this guy, does he show up on time to tutor? How does he treat people? Even to get into question, there's so much, does he pay his rent on time? Can you see himself taking care of himself even if he's living in Green Bay or wherever he's living at? Right. So these are things like your total well-being that they're worried about. But again, we see these examples every year of how important the degree is and why you need to leave here with that degree. So for instance, obviously we know the ball gonna stop sometimes. So
Right.
at some point, football is gonna be done. You're gonna be done, and you're gonna have to lean on something to make a living for yourself and your family. So for us, it's literally that where it's like, all right, so I have a guy who he wants to go to the draft in 3 years. So he asked me to put him on a 3-year graduation plan. So right now he's in 15, 18 credits almost every semester. And luckily at the university we have like 6 months up his classes to where you can kind of load up differently to where you're not in it all at one time. But for him to be able to actually leave for a meaningful degree while also chasing his dream of what we know is to play football. When we're not trying to crash any dreams to say that you can't do that based off because you need to leave here with a degree first. We have guys who leave and then come back to finish their degree even years later. But I mean, sometimes it's just the reality that has to hit them. So we have guys where we sit down, we talk, and I can hammer it to your head, I can hammer. We have guys who don't get it into their sophomore years. We have guys who don't get it to their junior year. And we guys who don't get it to their senior year. And then we have guys who don't get it until they come back. And then they tell you like, man, I know y'all was saying this and this and this, but now I realize it. So for us, it's sharing those examples, one, but also during the process of them being here, trying to also, when the things happen that are not going against what we're trying to build or what they're trying to build, or even going against them leaving here with a meaningful degree, now it's like, all right, this is why this is not going towards what you said you wanted, which was a meaningful degree. This is why this energy needs to go here. So we have action plans that we'll put in place if things aren't going the way or grades aren't where you want them to be, supporting you that way with the resources that we have, while also understanding that sometimes it's more than just football and maybe academics not going right, where there's other things in your life. Obviously, not just those two things. To also be able to point you in the right direction in terms of mental health services and things like that to make sure holistically they're good. But for us, is that sometimes they don't get it until certain points. So just it's persistence for real. So it's constant sometimes. And this is guys who come in ready-made where I was like, man, the dude been working hard since he stepped on campus. And he's been getting it, he's been working where that's just the way he's in tune and just individualized. That's why all of our services and the way we move is all individualized. So I know I talk a lot about this, and that. So basically we have tutoring services that we offer, mentor service. So a mentor meets with the guys, not so much like a tutor, but more so helping them get organized for the week, figuring out what you need to complete for that week, building a to-do list essentially.
Right.
And then throughout that week you'll work on your to-do list, and then during the end of the week we have a checkout system where guys come in, we just check whatever's complete, basically just confirming and getting them into that rhythm. This is only for that first year, and then after that, building on that, then they can go and kind of do their thing depending on GPA and things like that. But mainly it's just built to not say that we can't just think that you coming in, you had a 3.1 in high school, but to assume that you're just going to come in and kind of be able to take, I'm going straight into the season, because when they get here, you got the summer, then you're going straight into the season, plus a full load of courses and having to figure it out. So we try to alleviate some of that, try to work with guys to figure it out. And sometimes it ain't even about academics. When they come in, we just talking. Yeah. So it's just really a space for you to just come in, we can rap. But with COVID, it's going to look a lot different with being able to connect with guys and be able to talk. So we'll see what that looks like moving to the fall. But, I mean, it's a constant fight of that, though, trying to get them to understand it.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up, because, of course, we know, like, COVID has clearly, shaking the world in so many ways. But for athletes specifically, and not that they have it worse than anybody else. Like, I think we're all adjusting and dealing with it in different fashions, but them not to be able, to play a sport or not know if they're going to be able to play the sport, like something that's a huge, part of their life. Like, we know people are out of work, and for some people, not necessarily, college athletes, but that is considered work to some degree. So how have you seen kind of personally that athletes are, dealing with being able to still training and staying encouraged to train or motivated to train in the midst of COVID and not, being able to do things how they normally do?
And I feel like that's what we're all searching for, is like that normalcy, and that's what a lot of them are searching for. So I know a few days ago from the football page, they tweeted out a few things related to the guys practicing and stuff, and pictures of the guys working out. So that feels like normalcy a little bit to them, just to be in the team workouts, then going online, seeing the pictures tweeted out, and then it seems like we're working towards something. So for them, I know a lot of times getting with the team during the weight room workouts, and I know they're splitting the group so there's not too many people in there and things like that, but it just makes it feel a little bit like normal. Now, I will say that honestly, there's not too many people with a lot of answers to a lot of questions, even where we're trying to figure out what's going to happen with the NFL, NBA, and things like that, where it's constantly changing, where I think that's what we're all doing. I think they're bracing themselves, just like, man, we're all bracing ourselves, hoping for the best while also knowing that, it may not be what we don't know, and that's the thing. So I always say, man, I'm not an expert, and I feel bad for the ones who are the experts in terms of having to have the answers to it. But I mean, obviously, safety being first. But now you're saying you have to train for a whole year until maybe your next competition, or maybe during the spring season. So everything's just so crazy, even having to think that far ahead. So for now, I'm knowing that people are probably trying to just stick to thinking day by day and just taking it day by day within that. But I know for myself, I'm searching for normalcy every day, trying to make things feel normal or act normal. But yeah, we're trying to figure it out.
I mean, I think that's crazy because normal is no more. I think, in all honesty, I don't think we'll ever really be back to a place that feels absolutely normal to us. I think we're going to have to adjust to whatever a new normal will look like. I think even when a vaccine, comes to fruition, or even when we start seeing things really move in a true better direction, I don't think we're going to really, it would be naive to move the same way we're moving before, afterwards, as if like this doesn't exist, or that as if like it can't, come back. But I mean, athletes don't really, like, even before something like COVID, athletes have always had this weird paradox, and we've talked about it before, but I feel like they're some of the most misunderstood people in the world, just from a standpoint of people not understanding any of their kind of life trials and tribulations outside of them being an athlete. So like, what are just some things you've noticed in being in the position that you're in terms of what, of course they're human, so they deal with everything that, all of us deal with, but have you seen, or how do you teach them to navigate kind of having to not so much live a double life, but, deal with these things in different fashions because of how people see them?
Former AD Michael Arnold used to say, like, the logo never comes off. So it's like literally no matter where you go, who you are, your representation of who you are in, as well as athletics. So for our guys, for instance, like, let's take going to class, for instance. So when we talk about going to class, one of the things I usually do is I look still a little bit young, like a student, so I can pop in, with my hoodie on, or pop in and just sit in the back of class, and I like to see what guys are doing in class. So I had one guy with his headphones in class, bobbing his head. He had his little notepad with him. I was like, "What are you listening to? Are you taking notes?" He was like, "Yeah, this helps me to stay up." But I'm like, thank you for coming to class with a notepad, ready to look like you're taking notes, but you're talking about I got to keep my focus. But his thing was always I got to just keep my focus, because at least I'm here, I'm up, I'm doing my thing. You go from weights, you go from workouts, you go grab lunch, and then you gotta go straight to class. So I get it. I know you're tired. It's the grind of it all, as well as the reputation of you in that moment, student athlete in there with headphones on, listening to music. People probably can hear the music blasting out of your headphones. So it's like, man, I get what you're saying now. I was just looking at it, man, let me keep myself up for a little bit. And class just started, so I get it. You just popped in, you just sat down, but it's just a representation of that as well. And even just sitting in the back of class, where I say you need to look engaged, you need to be engaged, not just look engaged, you need to be engaged. So like teaching those small things where it's like, sometimes even as normal students, I used to go to class and just say I'm here. And that was my energy, where it's like, yo, I'm here, I ain't bring nothing else, don't ask me no questions. But it was like, we got to maximize the experience, where it's like the professors who I did ask questions in class, and the professors who I did try to connect with, were some of the best experiences that I had, school-wise anyway. So I was just trying to teach some of those things. And knowing, obviously, sometimes you won't get all of or see the results from all of that, but we have seen the results from that. And we've seen increase not only in our SC Academic Honor Roll, so that's between 2 semesters you have to have at least a 3.0 to get that honor. And we've had an increased number by more than doubling that number. So we're telling them, like, man, we're telling you follow the plan, you do what you're supposed to do, 9 times out of 10 you're going to be successful by just going towards that and doing that. Where it's like, you go against that, now you see that's where some of the problems, come. But like I talked about, like, we have, things in place, not just us that's going against it. You have your coaches that can get involved, you have, team that get involved and things like that. So we have different things in place for them. We communicate with the coaches weekly, so we're meeting to talk about each of the guys, their attitude, their effort, their accountability, and different things like that. So it's a full machine going towards helping these guys be successful in the classroom. So it's me along with 5 other full-time, or 4 other full-time people, 2 GAs, and you have tutors, mentors, and literally is a gang of us all going towards this one thing. So these students wasn't here, we wouldn't have a job. If obviously some of the guys who I talk about, being the ones where we got to be persistent with, if they wasn't here, obviously I probably wouldn't have a job. So I love it, but it's the grind of it all, the journey of it all, trying to get to the end of what we hope is a degree, or what we hope is some form of success, or whatever that is after sport, or just being able to transition well after sport, which is the hardest thing.
Yeah, so just going off of what you were just saying, like, what is it like to see your players, like, actually, you know, well, not actually, but see them finish their degree and actually, like, you know, meet that milestone, or, you know, and or see them actually be able to play professionally? Just what is that feeling like, knowing that you've been able to see that journey up close for, you know, their however many years that, you know, it took for them?
Yeah, so for me, it's like looking back, like talk about right now, we got a group of incoming freshmen, 20-something freshmen, newcomers in right now, who we were explaining to them, we just got finished with graduation. So people who we did the same exact thing with 4 years ago are now, you know, taking that next step in their lives. Whereas like, so I got back here in fall of 2017. So that freshman class is now going into their senior years, about to graduate. So this will be the first class that I got to see go from summer welcome to our what we call our Tiger Training Program, which is our summer bridge program, to now graduation. So for me, that's going to be like the biggest thing. So one of my goals from getting into the industry, the field of athletic academic services, was seeing the class through. So I was at North Dakota for 6 months. I was at Maryland for a year. Built some good relationships there still. But now coming back here, being here for 3 years now, and it's like now being able to see those guys go from, you know how it is as a freshman. I'm sure if you put your freshman picture up against your graduation senior year picture, it'd be tragic a little bit. But yeah, seeing that growth within the guys is probably the biggest thing. And I say this all the time. So I had a guy who we argued, and I say argue, it's like, you need to do this, I know you need to do this, and he's so confident that this is what he needs to do that he says this is what he needs to do. Never disrespectful, nothing like that, where it's like butt head, until I got what I needed, which was need you to take care of what you need to take care of and do what you need to do. And then literally he got to a point where he said, man, I feel like every time I just do what I need to do, I don't hear from you. I was like, there you go.
There it is.
There you go. So you get it. And then like now it's like, man, our working relationship was, hey, you know what's going to happen, or what you have to do to get me to be on you.
Right.
So you know what you need to do to not that for that not to happen. So for me, it was even those type of relationships where it was like, man, from the beginning it was like, man, I'm sick of this dude, this, and this, and then we get to a point where I'm like, I get how you are, I get how confident you are, and your ability to build, you know, think what you need to do. But I was like, last time you did that, you forgot. Last time you did it, you forgot. So I was like, let's just handle it now while we're thinking about it. So it's those type of things, and then seeing guys actually mature, and then going and do things. So outside of just even going pro, we've had guys who start businesses even prior to graduating. Guys who again going obviously to build, you know, good families and good homes and things like that. But obviously, even thinking about the guys who go pro, and then some of the things that they are, you know, able to do. Everything that we try to help and grow and build within them is a skill set that's transferable, even as a pro athlete. So even when we think about working on interview skills, and we're thinking about your elevator pitch, and we're thinking about, you know, how to sell yourself, all of those things are, you know, kind of what helps you even when you go meet with a GM or you go meet with a scout and things like that, having to have those things. So it's like, I got to tell me he doesn't like to speak in public, or he doesn't like public speaking, where I'm like, you know, you have to take a communication class here, you know, almost in every major, if not all majors with gen eds. So just that, where I was like, so what you gonna do when you gotta, you know, interview, or you have to speak here, you have to speak there? It's like, man, that's different. I got a helmet on. We're like, no, you ain't always gonna have that. So just getting them out of their comfort zone and getting them, because it's gonna be uncomfortable, especially when you're trying to build a confidence that may have not been there academically. Building my academic confidence was one of the hardest things I had to do, because I was always feel like I'm in the classroom, I'm gonna sit in the back so no one see me, so no one hear me. So I'm barely here, so that if they do try to see something, maybe I don't qualify, or it's like, hey, there you go. Maybe I don't qualify to be here, or it's like, you know, that was my defense mechanism on it. So I get that that's some people's mechanism, where then you do it and you're like, man, I have the ability all the time. So
yeah, no, that's real. And I mean, just I think that should be something that a lot of people look at. I don't think a lot of people do. I think they see players go pro and they'll mention that school, but I don't think enough people talk about how ready professionally those players are, because it's not just from an athletic standpoint. Like, a lot of people athletically, from a body standpoint, could probably play or, you know, go pro, but in terms of mentally being ready, understanding all that comes outside of your player responsibilities, like you said, people gotta learn how to live. You're gonna be living on your own at potentially, you know, like 20, 21, and that's not an easy feat. Like, it's people that, you know, graduate college, you know, and still struggle to live on their own, just because it's a lot to adjust to. How am I managing my bills? Like, how am I making sure that, you know, everything's taken care of? What's a necessity? What's not a necessity? Like, that's the first time you really got to answer a lot of those questions. So I think the development of athletes is something that should be focused on more. I think now, just with the rise of the awareness with mental health and things like that, we're starting to pay more attention to really what's going on with athletes and what they're dealing with outside of playing, because we're starting to see that players are starting to speak up. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying too.
It's starting to become like they're letting us know, like, hey, like, this is a problem, or this is something I'm dealing with that's not playing related that I need y'all to pay attention to, or like we're just more aware of things. So it's like if a player like has an issue or is playing wrong, the first thing is not that they're bad, or the first thing is not that they're like making that choice out of rebellion. It's like, what if they have something going on family related, or what if they're going so hard or feeling like they have no choice but to do this because they have to provide for their family and not providing them with other options to do so. So I think development is extremely important, and I'm glad we have like people in roles like you. I can just imagine they're extremely important, especially being a black man in that role. I think you want to avoid race, but it's kind of hard to, just because the majority of our athletes, especially when you talk about football and basketball, are black. So they need to see male figures that look like them in those positions. One, to know, hey, he understands me, and in some ways that like a white man just wouldn't be able to. And it's not to say that a white man couldn't do that job like just as efficient. It's just a relatability thing. But then also, if I'm not playing, I can do that and still have an impact on like young black men that come after me. But kind of switching gears. So speak about going pro. We talk about the NFL. We see that they're planning and prepping for a season. My big thing is, do we feel like this should be happening? Like, do we truly feel like, with everything that we know and understanding everything that we don't know, regarding COVID and the danger of it, is it something we should be doing? Or should we really be putting the athletes at risk? Is it really worth it?
Man, and just look at everything that surrounds football too.
Yeah.
So tailgating. And even you look at the NFL stadium and say we allow 18,000 people. 18,000 people in the function sounds crazy right now. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like during COVID, 18,000. Even when you think the capacity of the stadium is 60, 50,000, but still, it's like insane to even think that. Like, so for me, it's like I don't see physical sports happening fall, maybe later start dates and things like that. But I mean, it's just going to be real hard to see. And like the NBA is going to be a real good test. And it's crazy for me to say test because it's like they're guinea pigs almost.
No, and it's wild.
So if seeing how this is going to play out in non-contact sport, almost fully non-contact sport, I mean, it happens, but then it'll give us a real good idea. But you see almost every conference now is releasing something almost daily. The MEAC, the MEAC conference canceled fall sports. And I'm sure, I'm not going to say I'm sure, but, the SWAC will be probably happening next if not. But a lot of smaller conferences are going to really get hit hard by this. I mean, granted, I know they would need football financially, but safety-wise, it probably wouldn't be best. And this is me saying this, knowing that I know probably the best thing for a lot of my guys is for them, to be out there, like we talk about the love for the sport, where it's like, you wouldn't want to miss a basketball season, you know what I'm saying, when you was in your prime. And so I get that part of it, not wanting them to miss it. But from a safety standpoint, we in Missouri can be good and, have control of it. But, you still got to travel. You still got to travel. Then what does that look like? So I guess more information needs to come up about all of that, of what that would look like, how could it be done, how would it be done. But for me, it's hard for me to say yes, seeing where we are now. When you look at some football hotspots, Texas, Florida, Cali. I mean, even look at Alabama, Georgia.
Because you look at Georgia,
a lot of these, South Carolina as well, a lot of these states with big programs, Tennessee, have some things going on COVID related in terms of peaks and stuff like that. But that's really the hardest thing to look past nowadays is that.
And I mean, like you said, the NBA being a test, and it's like the bubble gives it hope in sense of like you have the ability to insulate those teams in some close capacity. But one of the uncomfortable things is you're still in a COVID hotbed. Being in Florida.
I mean, they even said I can't remember who it was, Kenny Smith. I think an interview I was watching. He said we're going to have positive tests. We already know that. So it's like we just want to, if we follow the protocol, we'll minimize the positive test that we will have or something like that. Maybe it wasn't him, so don't quote me on that. But so even hearing that, I was like, so going into it and knowing we're going to have this expected amount of positive cases, we're going to try to minimize that. And if we minimize that to the lowest possible, I feel like for them in their head that's a win. Whereas for me, it's like there's still some positive cases who still want out and risk infecting other people. And then when you think about even the vaccine, where it's like, man, nobody trying to get a vaccine in a year.
Right.
5 years, 10 years down the line, when you got to test it out a little bit, but it's going to be really hard to see anything really get played in a lot of these states, in the places where they are trying to play at.
Right. I mean, it's tough. I think the world, of course, the world misses professional sports, and a lot of people are happy to have these things coming back. But it's going to be real short lived if we start seeing them cases rise, because I don't think it's something you can really control or contain, even when you have people insulating that bubble with daily tests. If somebody is positive, so now you got one person. So now you got one player who made the trip, but he locked in his room for 2 weeks, can't play, can't be with his team. It defeats the point.
I mean, if you look at it, we get to the final, and you know who they won the finals. We won the Lakers. So you get to the finals, you got LeBron test positive. No, this is just hypothetically speaking. LeBron test positive. You got AD test positive. And then now what do we do?
Right, like, and if they do the different seeding,
and they're not going to play without LeBron. They're not playing without some players. So you're going to postpone for 14 days until LeBron gets better. You know what I'm saying? They're not going to finish the final without LeBron. They're not going to play. So it's going to be interesting to see how they would do that and who they would do it for in terms of postponing games. But like, for instance, what is the protocol on that if your star player gets hurt or your star player gets COVID and now you have to still play without him?
I mean, because now it gets murky, because now it's like they made the choice to come. Everybody made the choice to come, well aware that it was a possibility. Mm-hmm. So who, like you said, who gets the exception, and why are we only going to make exceptions for your major players? Like, why wouldn't you make the exception for your 8th or 9th man who may have tested positive? It's just because now it's like, that's just unfair in a lot of different ways, and that's why I think the season is so, it's not pointless and it's not irrelevant, but it's just kind of like, it's so hard to really gauge this season, like judge.
I mean, it popping up at the time is popping up. I know what they're saying, but it makes it seem a little bit tone deaf in terms of,
for sure,
what's really happening, especially to move to Florida. It's like, a couple of things I've been saying constantly during the pandemics is at a time like this, and then the other one is like during this pandemic, and then it's like you look at it, you put that before anything. It's like NBA moves to Florida, like in a time like this, but it's like literally nothing is beyond me anymore.
No,
literally trying to figure out and understand it fully.
I mean, even just seeing the way people are responding to the pandemic in itself, it's just like people partying, people clubbing, going to pools. It's just like, so y'all don't care at all. Like, this is ridiculous. But I think it's like, because I think people are focused on it affecting that one person. Like, who has it? Yeah. Now it affects those families.
But a lot of people were saying during those times in April, May, where we should have been fully locked. Everywhere. Yeah. That was football season right there. That was basketball season right there during those times. That's where we would have won to get those times. Yeah. During that time, where it's like, now you got places shutting back down or preparing to shut back down. So I'm not an expert, good. And I'm glad to not be in this situation.
Right. But since the season is back, who do you think, like, who you got winning the championship if they do make it?
I'm a Sixers fan. So
okay, of course.
I got to trust the process for however long I need to trust the process. I'm gonna be trusting the process.
If Ben can shoot,
Ben playing power forward, man. If Ben playing power forward, we got Milton at the point. If Ben is, I like Ben at the point too, but if Ben does shoot, that opens up the game a lot. Yeah, if Ben shoots, that's dangerous. You playing Ben, you're just waiting for him to go in the paint. Like, you're like, I'm gonna give you all of that. Literally. So you getting, that's disrespectful in the NBA for anybody to even do that to you. Yeah. But Embiid, if Embiid stay healthy, I got to go with us just because that's my dog. I got to go with.
Look, I'm going with Milwaukee till we get put out.
That's what I said. You got to go with it.
We get put out.
Sure, might see you in the East.
Look, maybe. I'm thinking it's between us two and Boston. Honestly, I think that's what it's going to come down to. One of those three teams.
But this is tournament-like. So Kemba's dangerous in a tournament-like basketball,
cardiac is a problem when it comes to tournament ball. Like.
So it feels like an AU tournament for a lot of these dudes. Yeah. So they were saying, like, the younger guys are going to flourish in this because it's going to feel like an AAU tournament. It's going to be less pressure than the NBA season because of the setup. So I get that a lot. Because some people who balled out AAU ball who probably didn't do the best in the NBA where you're like, in that environment, small gym environment, they're going to go.
Yeah, I love the fact they're gonna be able to televise those games.
Oh,
They probably gonna be really interesting to see.
They are,
Yeah.
and it's gonna be the first time a lot of people get to put that aggression out into something other than training and preparing for something that you don't know when it's gonna come back. And again, pick back into that. A lot of people gonna be training, trying to figure out what's about to happen. Like I'm a big track fan. I was waiting for the Olympics to come this year. So we're supposed to be preparing to watch the Olympics in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So hopefully we get it next year because they saying summer 2022.
Look, the year keeps getting further and further away. So we need people to chill out.
Yeah, so we got to get the Olympics at least next year.
Yeah, and so the final question, the question I have to ask everybody that I sit down with, because it's the reason why I'm doing this and the reason why I'm talking to y'all. So what, Martin Solomon, makes you qualified?
Man, hopefully some of those degrees I got. I'm joking. But mainly I feel like it's the grind. So I feel like I got it from the muscle in terms of, from the beginning of trying to figure out what I want to do, then figuring it out, and then you realizing in the sporting industry, there's a lot of handouts, and if you don't have some of those handouts, you really got to figure out another route to get to where you want to go. So it can be a lot difficult, but it's like literally when you go from here, you figure it out, you go from here, you figure it out, and you keep progressing, and you what you call figuring out may be success to somebody else, but for me, I'll just call it success, and you have some success as well. Continuing to do those things, not saying I wouldn't take a handout and things like that, but saying not taking a handout, but also, getting it on my own in terms of that, not minimizing the impact of my mentors and the people that I look up to, the people I get information from, but I'm saying in the sense of, this is what the information I got from you, and you told me to go do it, now I want to go do it, and this is the benefit of me taking your advice, not saying that I need you to go do this for me, to open up this door for me. So for me, once you go take that route and you earn it that way, that's yours. So you're qualified. You don't need to feel like you don't need to be here, or you don't deserve to be here. And for me, during my journey, that's been the biggest thing, is building the confidence to know that you are, qualified. So for me, knowing the grind, seeing that you didn't take no shortcuts, you did it the right way, you did it the best way. For me, that's why I'm qualified. It's because, from the trenches to now, it's been the same Martin, same way, but impacting in a different way. And hopefully that impact can continue to build to, bigger platforms and things like that moving forward.
No, incredible, man. Like I said, I admire what you're doing. Like I said, you've been a mentor, since we've connected and been interacting. Just like the impact you have on kids, is the impact in whatever I'm doing. I just whoever is watching me or whoever is seeing me that's coming up, even if it's not as an inspiration in terms of what they want to do, just seeing I want to grind like him, I want to work like him, I want to have that impact as well. So thank you for being a mentor, and thank you for doing this interview with me.
Always.
Of course. So this has been another qualified interview. Definitely we'll have his socials in the video, so definitely go follow him, keep up with him and what he's doing here at the University of Missouri. And until next time, I'll see y'all in the next interview.
Appreciate it.